We
Okay,
need
okay.
to figure this shit out, man. It's so hard every time.
I know, every single time. Fucking 5 minutes in already.
Oh my god, dude, I'm gonna butcher this whole thing. Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is...
Mm.
Why does
This is Tale of Two Dead Girls. I'm
everything feel stupid?
I'm your host, Kayla.
And I'm your host, Kayle.
And this is episode 29.
Yeah, we've been trying to do our intro for about 3 minutes now, so this is what you're getting.
Yeah. We're done redoing it. It's stopping and redoing it. So welcome to episode 29. We have a theme today. We are trying out a new thing where we do themes. And this one is serial killers that are also cannibals.
Yes, disgusting.
It's a very gnarly episode.
So I watched The Night Stalker on Netflix. Did you watch it yet?
No. I still
Oh,
have. Actually, no. I tried watching it, but like my attention span has been so short lately, so I like immediately just started using my phone and I didn't pay attention.
oh, I hate when I do that, and then I have to rewind it, and then
Yeah.
yeah, no, I do that all the time, all the
And
time.
that's Richard Ramirez, right?
Yeah, dude, I did not know how fucked up he was. Like,
I don't
I
I
knew
don't I
that.
don't know. I don't know it. So don't tell me.
Okay, I won't tell you. I didn't realize like all the stuff that he did. Like, I knew that he was horrible and he did like really bad shit, but there was some stuff that I did not know that he did, and it's just crazy how
He
he
did
like...
like he was like in a cult, right? Or he like did some sort of satanic stuff.
Yeah, he wasn't in a cult, but he did say like he did it for Satan and stuff like that. But I think it was just like for shock value. I don't really think he was
Oh.
like doing it because he was crazy or true Satanist or anything. It was just because like the time, I
Yeah.
think. At least that's what
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Like he drew like a pentagram on his hand and shit, and that's like the most famous picture of him is like he's like holding up his hand with a fucking pentagram on it. He was a
Mhm.
nutcase.
Wow. As they usually are.
True. True.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode. Because I forget everything I talk about. But I started listening to a new podcast recently, and they're called That's Spooky. Did I mention that?
Um, I don't think so.
They talk about like spooky stuff. They're like a true crime podcast, and then they also talk about like other like weird shit going on. I forget. They have like names for all of their little like topics that they talk about. It's really like cute. Like, well, I mean, I guess it's not cute, but it's like funny cute. I don't know. They are just they're great. I don't know. I love hearing them talk. I love hearing them share their stories and stuff. So check them out. They're pretty cool.
What's it called again?
It's called That's Spooky.
Oh, okay. I want to
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah, check them out. They're great. I think their episodes are like an hour, like almost 2 hours long. Um,
Oh, yeah. I like it when podcasts have longer episodes. I hate it when their episodes are like 20 minutes. Whenever I listen to podcasts that have mini episodes, I always listen to all of the normal episodes first and then go back and listen to the mini episodes.
oh, that's a good idea. I've never thought
Yeah.
of that. Okay, so I told myself I was gonna look up the pronunciation of all these damn words before I did this episode, and I forgot.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, I did mine on the Prussian serial killer Karl Denke. Fair warning, these are all like Polish names and words, I believe, maybe German, as well. So I'm probably most likely going to butcher a lot of this. So very sorry. So anyways, he was known to be or is known to be the most vile German serial killer during the interwar period. Karl was a Leo. He was born in the village of Oberkunzendorf, Silesia in the Kingdom of Prussia, which is now known as Kalinowic Gorny, Poland. Sorry if I butchered that again. On August 12th of 1870 to a wealthy farmer. Apparently, Karl refused to speak to anyone until the age of 7. He was a rather difficult child and didn't do well in school. He also ran away from home when he was 12. But anytime he would run away, like the police would always bring him back home. His father died when he was 25, so he was pretty young. And he and his brother inherited money from their father when he died. And so they bought a piece of land with a farm on it in Zybis. There's only 2 images of him, like, ever that is known to be him. One where he's alive, and then also when he is dead. So those are on the Instagram, so go check those out. But Karl lived in Münsterberg, Silesia, Germany, which is now Zybic, Poland. He was known as a generous and caring local citizen. He was well liked and respected around town. People even called him Father Denke. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't meet with women, he didn't like go on dates or anything, or at least he wasn't seen doing that. He carried the cross at evangelist funerals and played the organ during church services. He was pretty much like a normal man, never really had anything sketchy. He was well liked and, all that good stuff.
So he was like normal.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Or seemed to be.
Yeah.
So Karl wasn't a rich man. He was living a lower middle class lifestyle. He would help beggars and travelers, offering them a place to stay and odd jobs if they needed it. Karl ended up losing his house after World War I, but stayed in an apartment within the building on the ground floor. He operated a meat shop in town and regularly sold suspenders, belts, shoelaces, and other leather goods in the local market. He'd sometimes even sell door to door. He frequently traveled to Breslau, which is now called Wrocław, where he was licensed to sell pork in the big city markets. He would sell it boneless, pickled, and in jars. He was known to sell his jars labeled as skinless pickled pork in Hala Targoa, which is a market hall that they have over there, and it kind of looks like a farmer's market, but like indoors. I don't think I've ever seen like market halls over here, so that's probably just a thing over, like, in different countries. But they sell like fruits, vegetables, meat, stuff like that. On February 21st, 1903, a young German woman, Ida Lahner, went missing. She's suspected to be one of his victims. On December 21st, 1924, a 35-year-old homeless vagrant man named Vincent Olivier arrived in Münsterberg. Karl invites him inside and offers money in exchange for helping to write a letter to his brother. And when Olivier heard the words, "Adolphe, you fatty," he laughed, turned his head, and Karl whacked him in the head with a pickaxe.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Olivier, heavily bleeding, he escaped and ran for help. He showed up at the Münsterberg police station covered in blood and claiming he had barely escaped from Father Denke's apartment. The police didn't really want to believe Mr. Olivier because Karl wasn't known to be a bad man at all. So they were kind of just like, oh, okay, sure, this guy did that, whatever. But then a brief medical exam revealed that Vincent had sustained a serious head wound that proved his claim that he had been attacked with a pickaxe. So then police started questioning 54-year-old Karl, and Karl admitted to attacking Olivier, but accusing him of attempting to rob him after receiving a handout. They then brought him to the police station and put him in a holding cell while they figured everything out. And
interrogation.
But as soon as the police stopped observing him, he hung himself in the holding cell with his pocket handkerchief. So the night he got caught, he admitted everything. Well, he didn't even get caught. Like, they were just asking him questions, and then he was like, "Yeah, I did it." And then
Damn.
he they put him in a holding cell. They didn't He didn't even like wait for a trial or anything. Put him in a holding cell, and then he like killed himself.
Probably just had that planned.
Yeah. So Olivier was given medical treatment and then charged with vagrancy, so being homeless and begging, which was a crime in Germany at this time. He was then sentenced to 10 days in jail for his role in exposing one of the most vile serial killers in German history, which I don't understand how that even makes sense.
Yeah, what the hell? He, like,
Like,
did them a favor.
I have no clue. It was really weird. Also, him, like, getting, like, going to the police station because he was being attacked, like almost being murdered, escaped
Yeah.
from being murdered, and then he gets charged for being a vagrant. Like,
They're pretty much just like, "Oh, sorry that happened to you, but you're homeless, so bye."
yeah, like it's kind of fucked
Jesus.
up.
No, it's way fucked.
So, despite Karl's suicide, the Munsterberg police still didn't really believe that he had done such an awful thing. His body had been turned over to his family, and the police went to his apartment to get his belongings on Christmas Eve, and that's when all their doubts disappeared. Are you ready for this?
Oh god, I'm scared.
They were too. They were very shocked when they went into his apartment. It seemed to be a makeshift meat processing shop that
Oh,
lab tests confirmed was full of human remains. So these remains included hundreds of bones, such as, here we go, I'm going to list a bunch of numbers here: 2 shoulder blades, a pair of collarbones, 16 femurs, 15 medium sized pieces of long bones, 7 heads, 9 lower body parts, 8 lower parts of the elbow, a pair of upper shin bone, a pair of lower elbows, 8 heels and ankle bones, 120 toes, 65 feet, metacarpal bones, and 150 pieces of ribs. I'm not done yet. 240 human teeth, stretched and dehydrated human skin, tubs of fat, jars of meat pickling in brine, and a closet full of blood-stained clothes.
oh my god, how many people did this guy kill?
Oh, I'll tell you.
Wait, so Ed Gein who? Like, how have we never heard of this guy? What the
I
fuck?
know. Well, he's known, like, people call him by the forgotten cannibal because people forgot about
True.
him.
Ugh.
But they also found tools for the work and equipment to make soap in his apartment. So apparently Karl kept documentation of all his victims. Police found documents, identification papers.
Oh, that was nice at least that he kept track.
Yeah, I guess so. So people were not like unidentified or whatever.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess.
So, yeah, they found documents, identification papers, a ledger dating back to 1921 detailing his work, where 20 victims' names were discovered. Most of them recently had been released from prisons or hospitals. Now I'm going to give you a list of a bunch of names that I'm going to butcher. So the names of his victims included, but I don't think it's all of them: Heinrich Bruckmann, a carpenter from Kammerswaldu, killed on February 2nd, 1914. A railroader from Rumen named Nibel, who was murdered on January 8th, 1919. And Kasper Hubalik, who was killed on April 20th, 1924. So these dates were all spread out. But there's a lot more names. So there was also laborer Franz Nice, tailors Joanne Close and Ewald Koenig, and Joanne Groger, sorry. A butcher Robert Lorenz, farmers Carl Sedell and Emil Exner, Oscar Heinzel and Wilhelm Rathman, bakers Julius Busch, and Max Heidenreich, who had been a blacksmith. His youngest victim was 16 years old, and his oldest was 76. His last known victim who was murdered was Rokas Pollock, who was killed on November 17th, 1924. Based on all the evidence that was found, it was now believed that the formerly high-standing citizen was in fact responsible for murdering, dismembering, pickling, and processing more than 40 people in 3 to 4 years.
No.
It was also believed that he was eating the flesh of these people as well.
Well, yeah, makes sense. I mean, if he was like pickling them and shit.
Yeah, well, so after this, people stopped buying pork because he was known to be selling pork because they were afraid
Ew.
that they'd be buying human remains.
That's like Robert Picton.
Who?
There was this killer named Robert Picton, and he had like a pig farm, and there's like rumors that he like would dump the bodies in with like the so when you have like body parts of animals that humans can't eat, then you just basically like dump it into dog food and shit.
What?
So he was like, they were thinking that he did that with like some of his victims, or that he put it in like the pig, like he fed them to the pigs, so then the pigs that were butchered were like basically had eaten human flesh and stuff. Ugh.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ugh. No thanks.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
anyways, so some local meat markets started closing because of the dip in pork sales. The region suddenly suffered an outbreak of stomach disorders directly after this discovery as well, during the winter of 1924 and 1925.
What the?
So people were probably buying human flesh instead of pork.
Oh, that's so
Like,
gross.
yeah.
Thank God I
People.
don't eat meat.
Oh my god, I know, right? Same. People also thought though that like the suspenders and the belts and like all the like stuff that he would make was made from like human flesh too. I don't really know how much of that is true though, because if it's leather, like you can't really make leather from human skin. I don't think, right?
Well,
Because
you
that's
can, because it's just like
what.
drying and stretching the skin, which you said that he had that there.
Yeah.
I mean, like Ed
Oh.
Gein would make, he made like belts, and he made like he made
Well,
like a belt out of like nipples.
oh my god. Yeah, I actually don't know how like leather stuff is made, so
Yeah.
I didn't yeah, I don't know.
I don't know too much about it, but I'm pretty sure it's just like the skin that's like stretched and dried. Ugh.
Oh. Okay. Well, so yeah, so anyways, Karl Denke was buried early in the morning on December 31st of 1924 in an unmarked grave in the corner of the cemetery. So in the 1970s, in the neighbor's garden, so the neighbor of the apartment, there were human remains that had been found,
Oh
which
God.
were confirmed to be more of Karl Denke's victims. So I think the 1970s is probably like the last of the bodies, or not even the bodies, but like the bones and, whatever that was found.
That's like so much longer after too, right?
Yeah, that was like 40 years, I think.
Oh
40,
my gosh, that's
50
insane.
years. Yeah. The house still stands though. It's still a place you can go visit. I think the address has changed a little bit.
Is it like a museum type thing?
Nope, someone lives there.
Oh no, I could never.
Yeah, and they don't like when people go and take pictures.
Yeah, I could not ever live in a house that had something like that happen. Ever.
Yeah, same. But that's my story. Karl Denke from Poland or Germany. I don't really know. It was very confusing.
Yeah. Well, that's a good story, but sad and fucking insane. Like I've never even heard of that. So I feel like cannibal stories are always like you've heard every one, you know?
Yeah. Well,
So weird.
you hear all the major ones. Well,
Yeah. Well, and
actually,
maybe
I
it's
don't
just
know.
because we live in like America, so maybe that's why we hear more about like what happens here with cannibals here. But a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know about the guy that I'm doing either, so I don't know.
Sick.
So, my story is going to be on Albert Fish, and I just want to give a warning because, I know we do like true crime, and if you're listening to a true crime podcast, you should expect that it's going to be pretty gruesome. But this story is disgusting and it involves children, so Just listeners beware, or listen with caution, because it's, and I did not add all of the disgusting gory details because I just personally couldn't, like, I don't want to be reading that shit, like, but you can find it all online. So Albert Fish was born as Howard Hamilton Fish, and he was born on May 19th, 1870 in Washington, D.C. He grew up with his mother and father. His father was 75 at the time of his birth, being 43 years older than his mother.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
Wait, he was 75? How can you even have
75.
how can you have kids? How is your sperm still like alive?
Dude, I don't know.
Oh my god.
He was the youngest of four siblings. His family had a lengthy history of health issues and mental illness. When Albert was 5, his father passed away at the age of 80, and his mother was unable to take care of Albert and the other four siblings, so they were all placed in an orphanage. During this time in the orphanage, Albert was bullied and he was picked on, and the kids used to tease him by calling him Ham and Eggs. I don't know if that's maybe because his name was Hamilton,
Probably.
but yeah, but that's when he started to go by Albert, and that was after a brother that he had that had passed away before he was born. Albert also was physically abused by the staff and other children, and during Albert's beatings, he realized that he actually liked it, and he would get
Oh.
erections during his
Wow.
beatings.
Interesting.
So that only caused more punishment and beatings by the staff members, and when other boys would do it to him, like if other boys were bullying him and beating him up, they would see that he would get aroused, and then they would just beat him up more and call him homophobic slurs.
Wait, so what year was this again?
This was, he was 5, and so 1875?
Oh my god. Yeah, the the way that like in school, like they would treat the kids is insane to me. Like
Yeah.
or not even just in school, but like in orphanages and stuff like that. Like everyone was just hitting children.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, back then they like
what
would
the
hit them with rulers and shit. Like even
Oh
in my
yeah, that's
grandma's
right.
time in school,
Yeah.
they would hit you with a ruler. She used to tell me they would like smack you on the hands with it.
Yeah. That's
That shit would
that's
hurt.
that's like fucked up. Like
Yeah.
really fucked up. I don't know. I hate that. I really really don't like that.
Yeah. So this low point in his life is pretty much when he developed his hatred for other people and his desire for torture. When he was 9, his mother was able to get a steady job and take care of the children again, so she brought them back home with her. At this point, he was a frequent bedwetter and he would constantly run away from home. Um, I guess he would go to like public swimming pools and go into the dressing room and just watch people change, like just watch people get naked and change.
Ew.
And some reports say that he would even masturbate while watching them.
Wait, how old is he?
He was 9.
Oh god. Is that
Yeah.
normal for 9-year-olds? Like is that I mean, I
Uh,
guess you wouldn't know that cuz you don't have a penis.
no.
Um
I don't know. I mean, I think like puberty starts between like, I don't know, like 9 and like 14 or something,
oh my
or
god.
10 and like 14.
I had no idea. I don't know why I thought puberty started like at 13. For
Yeah,
boys.
I don't really know for boys. I mean, I know that like their shit starts working pretty early on, but some most of the time they don't really know
Oh.
what's going on, you know?
Oh god.
But when he was 12 years old, he got into a relationship with another boy. And in this relationship, he said that's when he learned to do very disturbing things with his partner, such as drinking each other's urine and eating each other's feces.
Oh,
So,
ew.
not to kink shame anyone, but I'm kink shaming. That is disgusting. Don't do that,
Like
please.
eating your oh no.
Yeah.
No. That's not even like that's just not healthy. Like that's
No.
actually like
You're
really
just literally
bad for
eating
you.
poison
Yeah. Oh my god.
because your body gets rid of it for a
It's
reason.
toxic. Like it's toxic waste that is in you.
Disgusting.
Oh my god.
So, at the age of 20, Albert moved to New York City with his mother. He was the youngest sibling and the only one that was still living with her, so it was just the two of them. It's kind of hard to find like the exact details of his early life because of how old this case is, but it's said that in New York City, this is where he took up male prostitution as a job, and he also began molesting young boys.
Oh
His
no.
preference was boys under 6 years old.
Ew, he had a preference.
Yeah. So one of his favorite things to do was get the newspaper and read the personal ads. So, like, today's day and age, we have like KSL and like classifieds and stuff like that. But, well, I mean, in my town, sorry, KSL is like a local thing, but
Yeah, I have
we
no
have
idea what
like
that is.
sorry, yeah, Craigslist, like classifieds like like Facebook Marketplace, that kind of thing. Well, they
Oh.
used to do it in the newspapers, and I think they still do, but they used to do it in newspapers where you could like buy a little section of the newspaper and put out your ad for like help wanted or things that you were selling, things like that.
Oh, isn't that like a penny saver?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, in my town it was called the nickel ads. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
So one of his favorite things to do was to get the personal ads. And whenever he would find one from a woman, he would write them a letter, and the letter would be the most disgusting, sexual, vile content that they had like ever read. So he would literally just find these newspapers, find people, like find women, and then just write them like these disgusting, awful letters. When he was 28, he got a job as a painter and a handyman, and this allowed him to pretty much travel a lot. And at this time, his mother also arranged to have him marry a 19-year-old girl.
Ew.
He
Well,
was 28, 18.
I guess that's legal, but
Yeah. So the two of them ended up having 6 children together, but throughout the
wow.
entire marriage, he had several affairs with several different men. He would even go on public dates, and one date was at a wax museum where Albert said that he saw a dissected penis, and after that, he became fascinated with it, and it was like
No.
his desire to castrate other men.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so after this, he became more obsessed with like castration and like dissection and torture. And so he developed a need to hurt himself more. So whenever he would masturbate, he would insert needles into his groin.
Oh my god. What
Yeah.
the heck?
So, yeah, if you don't know where your groin is, you can Google it, but it's in your lower regions. And he would push the needles all the way into his body and leave them there. Um, at one point in his life, he had an x ray done, and there were 29 needles in his groin
Oh
just
my
hanging out there.
god.
Yeah. So
Wow.
he liked the feeling of being in pain so much. Like when he would sit down, he could feel the needles inside of him, and it was just like pure pleasure to him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah. In 1903, Albert was put in jail for embezzlement, and he continued to have affairs with other men. And when he was released, his children noticed right away that he was different. Uh, this is kind of where he gets like crazy, I guess. I mean, he claimed that he heard voices from God that told him that he was the second coming of Christ and that his job on earth was to castrate little boys.
Ew. You swear.
Yeah, he began to self harm to forgive himself for his sins, and shortly after, he was diagnosed by a psychiatrist as having religious mania.
I've never even heard of that.
It's basically just like, oh, I'm a messiah, I'm like the second coming, I'm
Yeah.
Jesus, that kind of thing. Um, in 1910, at 40 years old, Albert began to groom a 19-year-old boy named Thomas Kedden. Thomas was mentally disabled and he was easily manipulated, and Albert used that to his advantage. Um, Albert took him to an abandoned farmhouse and locked him there for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, he was tortured, used as a sex slave, and his original plan was to do whatever he wanted to Thomas and then eventually kill him. But after 2 weeks went by, he decided not to kill him because it was in the middle of summer and he was afraid that his body like decomposing would like
Smell.
cause him to get caught. Yeah, so he just
Yeah.
decided not to kill him. So instead, what he decided to do was take some scissors and cut his penis off and keep it as a souvenir.
Oh my god.
Albert said that he will never forget the screams from Thomas.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he cleaned him up, bandaged him, gave him $10, and sent him on his way. And that was all that we ever knew about Thomas. Albert recalled in his letters, I took the first train I could get back home, never heard of what became of him, or never tried to find out. So, yeah.
Wow.
I just can't, I don't know. I guess like he was like, kind of like handicapped or disabled. So it's like, what did he do? Like, where did he go? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like at this time, like people were really homophobic. So I feel like if he went to tell people, they probably didn't like take him seriously, or maybe they thought he did it himself and he was like crazy. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I can't even think about like what would have happened to him after this.
Mhm.
Shortly after this, Albert's wife left him and all 6 of the children for another man while he was at work. After his wife left, his children said that his hallucinations became worse. They would find him doing weird things, like they found him one time wrapped up in a rug and saying that the apostles told him to do it. He claimed that God was telling him to attempt cannibalism, so he started to eat raw meat, and he
Ooh.
tried to feed his children raw meat.
Oh my god. What an idiot.
Yeah. So from all accounts, he never abused his own children, but he would get them to abuse him. So he would have one child sit on his back and hold up fingers, and if he guessed wrong, like the amount of fingers that they were holding up, then the child would get to hit him with a homemade club that had nails through it.
Oh my god.
So he literally had like this little club that he fucking hammered nails into and would have his children beat him with it until he was bleeding.
That is uh yeah. I have
Yeah.
no words.
He would get sexual satisfaction from this, but it wasn't enough. So he would go to bars and he would find prostitutes and he would ask them to brutally beat him during sex. Sometimes he wouldn't even have sex with them. He would literally just pay them to beat the shit out of him. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I get, like, BDSM is like a thing. So that's not the weirdest thing to me, but it is still kind of weird. And,
Like those were his kids though. Like
well, he would pay like sex workers
oh,
to do it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Well, like,
Yeah.
he would have his kids do it, but to get more like sexual satisfaction out of it, he would like
Yeah.
pay people to like literally beat him up so bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And like as weird as it is, it sounds kind of fun. Like I want to beat the shit out of somebody and get paid.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think I
so
could actually do that though, cuz
no, I don't think I could either. I'd feel too bad.
yeah,
I'd be like, you have to
same.
make me mad first.
Not even then I'd be like, "You know what? Just I'm gonna go home. Bye. Sorry to disappoint you. Here's your money back."
Yeah, so after this the self-harm it got worse. He would take a cloth and soak it in lighter fluid, put it in his anus and light it on fire.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Dude, I don't know, it's just like what the torture just wasn't enough for him. Like he just
That's crazy.
I know. It's yeah. There was a lot worse shit that he did, but I'm just adding like what I could stomach.
Yeah.
In 1919 is when Albert claims that he began his brutal attacks. He would go out and stab and attack people, just like random houseless people or African American men and disabled people. He claimed that he did this to those 2 groups specifically because he felt that they would not be missed if he killed them, which is horrible, but he also knew that they would be a low priority for police and that he would get away with them. And he was right because he was never suspected of any of these crimes. He was totally just living off the grid, like nobody even knew who he was.
Hmm.
In 1924, Albert was walking down a country road and saw a little girl named Beatrice Keel. She was playing in a field and she was 8 years old, and the field was near her parents' farmhouse. Albert went up to her and he asked her if she would help him pick some rhubarb. Beatrice was hesitant to help Albert until he offered her some money, and then she agreed. Beatrice's mother saw her walking away with the man and chased him off the property. So later that night, Albert went back to the property and he hid in their barn. And somehow Beatrice's father found him and chased him off, and he didn't go back after that. So I don't know, that's just crazy. But then shortly after this, he attempted to harm two other boys. Albert lured in two young boys, Cyril Quinn and his friend. Apparently, Albert had actually been molesting and grooming Cyril for some time. So when he invited them over for dinner, he wasn't really hesitant to go. But while they were waiting for Albert, they were wrestling and they moved the bed. And under the bed, they found three weapons. Albert had what he called his instruments of hell, which were three weapons that he would use to torture, mutilate, and murder children. It
Oh my
was a
god.
meat cleaver, a butcher's knife, and a small handsaw.
Fuck.
So after the boys saw this, they ran out of the house and they never went back. Sadly enough, just 4 days later, Albert successfully abducted 8-year-old Frances McDonnell. Francis was reported missing by his parents, and the police went to question the friends that he was playing catch with. And the friends told police that he left with a gray haired man. Police started asking the neighbors in the area, and another neighbor reported seeing a little boy walking in the woods with an old gray haired man as well. And the strange thing, too, is that his own mother actually saw him, too.
What? And she didn't
She
like
didn't
call
see
out for
her
him?
son. She saw Albert Fish,
Oh.
like, walking around near where the boys were.
Mhm.
But he just looks like an innocent old man, so she's just like, "Oh, yeah." But then when people are like, "Oh, we saw him with this guy, this description," she was like, "I saw him," you know?
Oh my god, that must have been like a crazy like realization.
Yeah. Before long, sadly, Francis's body was found in the same oh, sorry, the other neighbors had saw him reported seeing a little boy walking into the woods with an old gray-haired man. I don't know if I said that, but before long, Francis's body was found in the same woods, and he was found by Boy Scouts. And I heard two different things. I heard one that he was hanging from a tree, and then one that he was under a pile of branches and leaves. I
Mhm.
kind of think that he was under branches and leaves because when they found him, um, they said that he was tortured, he was brutally sexually assaulted, and he was strangled with his own suspenders, and that he was strangled so tightly that the suspenders were embedded into his throat. Like
Oh
they
my god.
were like part of his flesh.
Oh my god. That poor child.
Yeah. Um
I can't
after
believe like I'm sorry, but I really can't believe that like people are so sick enough to like do this to other people, especially kids. Like
yeah,
I
like
I just can't I what?
innocent, just innocent little children, like no one deserves it, but children the most, like
I just can't believe like how these kids are like going through it in those moments. They're scared for their life. They're in pain. They're screaming. They're crying. They're hurting. No one's helping them, but they're just being hurt over and over. And oh God, it, oh God, it makes me so upset. It makes me so, so upset.
yeah, me too. It's fucking horrible. And just he was 8 years old, like he probably never felt like true fear until his
Hmm.
last moments, like horrible. um Afterwards, Albert said that he had planned on castrating Francis, but he heard noises in the woods, so he quickly killed him and just ran away. Um, Oddly enough, Francis's father was actually a police officer, and he worked in a different department than the like homicide unit or something, but he was actually moved to that department so that he could work on his son's case immediately.
Oh wow.
But one of the things that actually complicated this case early on was that the pathologist who did Francis's autopsy reported that the killer could not have been an old man because an old man wouldn't have had the strength to do what he did to Francis.
Okay.
Yeah, so that like complicated the case like completely. Um and like this is kind of a spoiler alert I guess, but he was arrested, but he was only arrested for one murder and he admitted to all these other murders. Like he was not even a suspect. He went totally off the grid. Like it was so crazy to me. But
Wow.
In 1927, 3 years after Francis's murder, a 4-year-old boy named Billy Gaffney went missing while he was playing in the hallway of his apartment with his 3-year-old neighbor, also named Billy, and the other Billy's brother, who was 11. So there were 3 boys. It was Billy Gaffney, his neighbor Billy, and his neighbor Billy's older brother, who was 11. So the 11-year-old boy went into his home for a moment, and then when he came back out, only his little brother, 3-year-old Billy, was there, and 4-year-old Billy was missing. He went and got his parents, and they asked the younger boy what happened, and he reportedly said the boogeyman took him.
Oh no.
So, in his confessions, Albert told police that he took Billy, murdered him, mutilated him so badly that he was barely recognizable, and tortured him brutally. And Billy Gaffney's body was never found because Albert told police that he took Billy to his house, drank his blood, and cooked him and ate him with vegetables.
What?
So this is the first
Jeez.
time that he actually did real like cannibalism with like people, not just animal meat. So you can find his letters online. Like he was literally so graphic with what he did. Like he was so disgusting the way that he would word stuff. Like he was proud of what he did.
Ew, yeah, I just looked him up and I like now I have a face to
Yeah.
this story and I don't know. It's
You can
just
see like, well, you look at him now and you're like disgusted, but you could see how he could just be mistaken for just some innocent old man. Like he was
yeah,
just this real
yeah.
old man. Yeah, so
Oh,
yeah, he was really descriptive in what he did, and I don't like to talk about it, so I'm not gonna, but yeah, if you wanna read it, or there's, like, people on YouTube that read his letters, but I just it's children, like, I can't, but in 1928, Albert committed another murder. So Albert found an ad in the newspaper from a teenage boy named Edward Budd, and he was looking for work. Albert offered him a job at his house, saying that he was a 58-year-old man needing help around the yard and the house. He went to the Budd family house and introduced himself as Frank Howard. So his original plan was to take Edward to his house and kill him, but when he went to Edward's house, Edward's younger sister, 10-year-old Grace Budd, opened the door, and immediately Albert decided that he wanted to kill Grace instead of Edward. Albert, also, I wanted to mention, like, I've seen pictures of her and she was so beautiful. Like, she was
oh,
so beautiful. Albert had to think of a plan quickly. So, like, back in this time, like, Edward was 18, so it was his responsibility as, like, a young man to start helping provide for the family. So, when he put out this ad, they invited Frank Howard to come to their home to meet the parents, because he lived further away. He lived, like, further away from them. So, he had to write them, like, a telegram or whatever. And so they were like, okay, well, come to our house, meet us, and then you can take our son with you back, if that makes sense.
mhm.
So he had to think of a plan like on the fly. So he quickly told the family that he was going to go to his 10-year-old niece's birthday party and that he would come back and pick up Edward after the party. But before he left, he basically just like turned to the parents and was like, you know what? Like, if Grace would like to come with me, she can. Like, there's going to be, games and plenty of little
Ugh.
girls her age, and she'll just have so much fun. Um, and she was really, really excited. So she begged her parents to go. And her mother didn't want her to go, but her father was like, oh, just let her go. Like, she doesn't go out much. So tragically, Grace left with Albert. And Albert told her family that he would have her back at 9 p.m. and pick up Edward at the same time. 9 p.m. came and passed. Grace wasn't home, and by the next morning, her mother was hysterical and she went to the police station and reported her missing. But because Albert used a fake name, Frank Howard, police couldn't find any record of him. Thankfully, the family was able to give a detailed description of him because, he sat and ate a meal with them, but it didn't really go anywhere. And oddly enough, a completely different man was actually arrested, charged, and sentenced for Grace's murder. And he spent 3 months in jail until police realized that he wasn't guilty. Like, I guess his
Uh,
wife had tried to frame him.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, but he thankfully was, I mean, he spent 3 months in prison, which sucks, but he was at least let
Yeah.
go. After that, the case went cold for 6 years until Albert Fish wrote a letter to the Budd family detailing exactly what he had done to their daughter.
Oh my god.
In the letter, he said that he took Grace to an abandoned farmhouse. He went inside and he told Grace to wait outside. He removed all of his clothes because he didn't want to get blood on them. And he could see her through a window and she was outside picking wildflowers. He shouted at
Oh.
her to come inside and he hid in a wardrobe. And when she got in, he jumped out and he exposed himself to her because he was naked. And he said that she immediately started crying and then he strangled her. And he says that he decapitated her, chopped up her body, cooked it, and he ate it over the next 9 days.
What the fuck? Oh my god.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's
And
so
how old was
bad.
she?
She was 10.
Oh my god, this poor child.
Yeah,
This
it's
poor
so
child.
sad. And it's so disgusting the way that he says it. Like, he sent this letter to her family. Like, he literally said something like, her tender, sweet ass took me 9 days to eat. Like,
Ew.
so bad.
I really
He,
hope he's rotting in hell.
yeah, definitely in the deepest depths of wherever the fuck bad people go, for sure.
Well, actually, I don't know because he probably would like all of it.
Yeah.
He'd
Oh,
be
yeah, true.
aroused by all the fucking flames of hell and shit.
No, there's nothing bad enough for this guy because everything that's bad he would enjoy.
That really sucks, honestly. That really sucks. I wish,
Yeah.
oh god, I wish he could have some sort of torture that he didn't like, you know?
Yeah, honestly. So the family took the letter to the police and they were able to compare the handwriting to the telegram that Albert had sent to Edward, and the handwording the handwriting was a match. So the police looked at the envelope that it was from, and it was from a company called NYPCBA, which I don't remember what that stands for, so I'm sorry. But police went there and they found a janitor that said he had taken a bunch of those specific envelopes home and that he had moved houses and he left some behind when he moved. So the police went to the janitor's old house and they asked who lived there, and the landlady said that it was a man named Albert Fish. So police didn't know the name because they were looking for a Frank Howard, but the description the family gave matched. So police waited at the apartment to see if he would come home, but after several days, nobody saw Albert. The police ended up surveying the house for a full month, but they never saw him. So eventually, they had to tell the landlady, "Hey, if you see him, make sure you call us. Try to keep him there as long as possible." And finally, 4 months after, the police got a call from the landlady that he was back.
Oh my god.
So she made him a drink and talked with him for a while until the police arrived. And when the detective arrived, he said, "Are you Albert Fish?" And Albert immediately jumped up and pulled a knife out of his coat pocket. But by this time, he was like a frail old man. So the detective was able to pretty much just like knock it out of his hand. And it said that like pretty much right when the knife dropped, he just like sat down in a chair and like slumped over. He arrested Albert for the murder of Grace Budd, and once he was at the police station, he immediately admitted to what he did to Grace and knew that he was going to be sentenced to life in prison or death. So he confessed to the other murders of Francis McDonnell and Billy Gaffney. And he told the police the details of the cannibalism and torture. And he admitted to hundreds of stabbings, assaults, rapes, and he claimed that he had a child in every state, meaning that he had killed 50 or more children, like that he had killed at least one child from every state.
Jeez.
Yeah, so police were only ever able to convict him for the 3 murders, but it is believed that he committed much more. Like I think there's at least 5 that he's still suspected of. And like all the assaults and everything, I mean, he would just like randomly assault homeless people. Like there's no way that those were all reported, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows honestly how much damage he did. But during the entire trial, Albert was completely emotionless. Throughout his time in custody, he was still self harming. Um, if they would have chicken in prison, he would hide a bone in his cheek and then sharpen it down to just stab himself repeatedly with it.
Oh my god.
The trial lasted 10 days, and Albert pleaded not guilty for reason of insanity. And the jury admitted they did feel that he was insane, but that his crimes were so horrible that he deserved the electric chair. So they believed that he was insane, but they were like, you know what? No, this fucker deserves to like fry
Oh my
instead of
god.
just sitting in like some facility for the rest of his stupid
Yeah.
life. On March 21st, 1935, Albert was found guilty of all 3 murders and he was sentenced to death by electric chair. And on January 16th, 1936, at Sing Sing prison in New York, he was electrocuted. He was quoted by the guards saying, "It will be the supreme thrill, the only one I haven't tried."
Oh my god, what a fucking weirdo.
So he's literally looking forward to his execution.
He's like, "Ooh, I wonder how hard my dick will get when I'm being electrocuted."
Yeah, so after his death, Albert's attorney gave an interview to the press about how Albert had given him his final statements. I guess he wrote like I don't know how many pages, like pages and pages of a letter before his death, like hours before. And the press wanted him to read it, but his attorney refused, saying, quote, "It was the most filthy string of obscenities he had ever read." And he vowed that he would never show another person or share those letters. So Albert Fish is left with the nicknames the Gray Man, the Boogeyman, Moon Maniac, the Brooklyn Vampire, and the Werewolf of Wisteria.
Wow.
That's that's Albert Fish for you.
Damn, that was a lot.
It's fucking disgusting and horrible.
Yeah.
Last podcast on the left did an episode about Albert Fish, and that was the first time I ever heard of him. And it's like 3 or 4 episodes long. They like get
Oh my
into
god.
way more detail than I ever would. So if you're interested in listening to that, you can. I mean,
Jeez.
they are a comedy podcast, so it's like they do make it a little bit easier to listen to some parts because they like make some jokes and stuff. But yeah, this is just a horrible story. I
I
even
think
texted,
I feel like we're too sensitive to like
yeah.
go into super detail with like some cases, you know?
Yeah, I was just gonna say
So
I even texted Kayla halfway through the story and was like, I don't think we should do this. Like it's horrible.
yeah.
But
I
you
think
know,
it's good to like share this stuff though so people like know like these things have happened and that these kids' names should never be forgotten, you know? Like
yeah, exactly.
don't be disgusting. Ugh,
Yeah, if
please.
you have like these kind of desires, like seek therapy, please. Like
Yeah.
this is not I mean, he had a rough life, granted he did, but and there was at one point like where when he was like 12, he had fallen out of a tree and gotten a really bad concussion and like had a stutter after that. So I mean, like he could have possibly had like brain damage that caused him to act fucked up, but at the same time he was enjoying like beatings and shit before that. So I don't really know if it like amplified it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I know
It's
that head
possible.
injuries and stuff can cause that kind of thing, but yeah, I don't know. He was just too much.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised he didn't abuse his own children.
I'm glad he didn't at least. Like,
Oh
are
yeah,
they are still alive?
I don't know if his kids are still alive and living normally. I mean, I think that some of them, well, he was executed in 1936. I mean, there's a good chance that some of them could be alive, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the 30s? Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
so
Wait, but his
no, that's just when he was executed. So yeah, no, there's no way that they're still alive.
yeah, well, I mean there might be grandkids.
Yeah,
It's like
he
my
got
grandfather was nasty.
honestly, he got married in when he was 28. So yeah, I don't think there's any way that his children would still be alive.
Yeah.
But he's buried at the prison cemetery,
Oh
Sing Sing
wow.
Prison Cemetery.
Why did I
And
never think about that? I didn't even know that prisons had cemeteries.
yeah, for people that they don't like, for people that don't give a shit about prisoners, they're just like buried in the cemetery there at prisons. I don't think all prisons have cemeteries, but
Yeah.
I know back in the day
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
I wonder if he's still there.
Oh yeah, like I was thinking like the people that die in prison, they die and they get buried in a prison or at that like prison area, so it's like they never leave. Their body is gonna haunt the prison forever because
Yeah.
that's where they're stuck for the rest of their dead lives.
Yeah, so this says the cemetery, which was formerly known as Gallery 25, was located on the west side of Hunter Street at the intersection of the road that leads around the side of the prison. There were burials here from 1826 until 1940 when all the burials were removed. They were reportedly transferred to local cemeteries. The people buried here were inmates whose bodies went unclaimed after their death. So I
Damn.
guess he did get moved, but I don't know where.
Oh well, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, fuck him. I would like
Fuck
to
him.
spit. I would like to spit on his grave.
He'd be like, "Ooh, yeah, I like that."
Ugh. God. He's so disgusting. But yeah, so that's Albert Fish, the most disgusting, vile, fucking piece of shit I've ever talked about.
Yeah, that's literally the worst story I probably have ever heard.
Yeah, it's bad. I told you it was bad.
Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna be that bad. I didn't think
Yeah.
anything could be that bad. Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, you guys, and hopefully you're still listening. And I guess we'll just chat with you in our next episode.
Make sure you subscribe to us, leave us reviews, send us your stories, all that fun stuff. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and sticking through this disgusting, horrible episode. Hopefully you weren't eating when we talked about it.
Oh god.
Um but yeah, so
We'll meet you
6 feet under.